to take effect as from 1st of September 2023. That is exactly at 12 midnight tonight. And I'll tell you what those taxes are this morning then, so that as you wake up tomorrow, you do know then that they're essentially going to be in effect. Number one, there's a 3% digital assets tax. That is sale of cryptocurrency, content, music, ebooks, photos, documents, videos, logos, animations, illustrations, and social media. The 3% digital assets tax kicks in officially. It's tomorrow, actually 12:01 midnight tonight. 17.5% export levy on imported iron, steel, and clinker. So that means that the price of cement is going to go a bit higher. Steel is also going to go higher, and iron is also going to go higher. And these are the elements that are then essential for building houses. We do not know exactly what's going to happen to the affordable housing agenda on this particular one. There's 10% export levy on imported paper, sacks, and bags. There's going to be a mandatory electronic tax invoices or loss of ability to claim expenses as well. And this is exactly what's going to be. The defaulters that are not going to file their taxes electronically are going to pay fine twice the amount of the tax that is due. And there's also a tax amnesty that kicks on September 1st. That is 12:01 tonight, where defaulters have until of June 2024 to clear taxes or lose waivers. Now you do know. That's why I made that mistake of September 1st, because when I see you next, that means that all these taxes should be taking effect. Now, other than that, the committee, the 10-member committee that is at the Bomas of Kenya have agreed to talk about all the issues that have been proposed from both sides. Now, we do know that the Kenya Kwanza side is going to get their way in, number one, entrenchment of the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. We do also know they wanted members of parliament to control the CDF kitty. Those were the glaring issues from the Kenya Kwanza side, and also the introduction of the office of the opposition from the azimio side. One of the issues that really stood out, number one, was the cost of living, which they've agreed they're going to talk about, and also the stopping of the government from encroaching political parties in the country. Now, all the stage is set for those conversations to continue. What we do know is that we, as Lookuptv, are camped right there at the Bomas of Kenya, giving you minute-by-minute updates as we get them on our website. That is on www.lookuptv.co.ke. That's going to be a story that is going to be trending all the way for the next 60 days, if you may, 2 months. And we shall be following it and reporting it as of how and when we have it. This is the Morning Drift. My name is Simba Kiage. Thank you very much for choosing to begin your day with us right here on Lookuptv. For now, we take a tiny breather. Once we come back, I'll be taking you straight to your newspapers, where I'll get to show you what it is that you're waking up to this morning. Right, I do have the Daily Nation this morning. Let's look at exactly what it is that they have put at the front page. There's the bigger headline here about how RUTO and Raila have essentially agreed on a common ground for the negotiations, and this is give and take. They call it the National Dialogue Committee. Yesterday agreed to discuss all agenda items proposed by both the ruling Kenya Kwanza Alliance and Azimio La Umoja One Kenya. A major breakthrough in planned negotiations. This includes Azimio's demands on the cost of living, audit of the 2022 general elections, as well as the government's proposals on the offices of the opposition leader and Prime Cabinet Secretary. A particular story has been covered on page 4 of the Daily Nation, and we do have this particular story here on page 5 on our Kindiki now. Is cracking down on immigration cartels. Detectives have arrested in the ongoing crackdown on corrupt officials at the immigration department. A particular story which has been trending for some time on how getting passports as a Kenyan citizen is a task that you cannot compare to any That particular story has been covered on page 5, and the trending story on the Trans Nzoia or Uasin Gishu and the Marakwet region employment saga, that's the overseas employment saga. It's a story that grabbed headlines yesterday because the lady behind that particular story was kicked out of that Senate hearing yesterday for failing to issue an apology after she said that that particular committee that was listening to that case was sort of siding with the complainants. We do not know how exactly that is going to end, but we're still waiting. We want to read more details on this particular story. Go all the way to page 2. On page 14, there's the story on how the Joho farm is dealt with blow in court, battle with KBN over new tariffs. That's a particular story that has been covered on page 14. And page 32, Gabon coup leaders place Bongo and house arrest. Rebel officers seize power after disrupted polls. That particular story has been covered heavily right here on Lookuptv, and we're going to look at it this morning, as well as on our website. That's on www.lookuptv.co.ke. That's it. On the last page, there's a story here. Another Ministry of Education now is in a move to increase varsity funding applications. It's talking about how underage students would apply for funding using index number and birth certificate. Those are those ones who are not essentially attained the age of 18, because indeed for you to get those applications from help, you do need a PIN. Qualify for a PIN in this country is any other person who has attained that age of 18. Good. Let's cross over to the Standard this morning. There's a story here on a DJ Vol, why Babu was freed. Particular story here that an 18-page deal with DJ. Now, witnesses recanted evidence, questions without answers, sheer or deliberate negligence. All these were at play as a Embakasi Member of Parliament was cleared of shooting DJ Volve at Enabobi Club on January 17th, 2020. That particular story, by the way, has been covered on pages 2 and 3. And this is the quote by Bernardo Choi. Surprisingly, they said Felix Owinda was not a prosecution witness. So it's just about the merit of the case in the way that the prosecution then went right ahead to handle this particular case. The particular quote is by Milimani Court Magistrate Bernardo Choi as he cleared Babu Wino, that's the Member of Parliament Embakasi East, of all the wrongdoing in that particular saga. Good. That particular story on how the Kenya Kwanza side and have essentially got into a deal to talk about all those particular issues has been covered on page 6 somewhere as the daily. The pages 14 and 15, you're going to read about how defiant president insists on 3 options. We did look at them. That is jail, getting out of the country, or going to heaven. That story of Joho Farm suffering another blow has been covered on page 12 of the Standard this morning. Gabon story, page 30. And that particular story of Fast Chase Recruitment Agency and the woes that the director now, Judy Chepchirchir, is facing after getting kicked out after refusing to apologize for accusing Parliament of bias has been covered on page 20. By the way, there's a particular story here on page 4 about how the meteorological department is telling you that El Nino is coming. Have you woken up with rain this morning? Because they predicted it will start this week and it will keep on increasing into the coming week. So be careful. They've already told you exactly what to do, and the areas that are red spots for flooding in the country, hopefully you'll be careful as well. That story is on page 4 of the Standard. We'll take a tiny breather. Once we come back, I'll be taking you straight to the newsroom this morning. We'll get to share with you some of the biggest stories that you are waking up to. Good morning. spouse of the Deputy President, Pastor Dorcas Rigathi, has launched a medical camp at the Rainbow Dispensary in Shimanzi, Mombasa County, in line with her Boy Child initiative, which aims at dignifying lives of 1,000 youth, with a similar camp set to be launched in Maritini area later this week. Attorney General Justin Muturi has stated that the WorldCoin registration and operation in the country did not meet the legal requirements and the Company Act requirements according to Article 57 of the Constitution. Appearing before the Parliamentary Committee investigating the controversial project, the AG noted that the WorldCoin lacks certificates of compliance and its operations in Kenya are illegal.
Odumbe, WorldCoin company was first registered in 2013 as a research project of data collection and processing, which later on developed to work as a business company.
In the sense that this company was established in 2013, and if indeed when they came to update their details, because at the point of time you're declaring your beneficial ownership to the Registrar of Companies, you're updating your company details. At the point of time they've updated that, that law is now repealed. So that means now you can have a single member company. Yeah.
According to the Attorney General Justin Muturi, WorldCoin was neither registered nor did it qualify to operate under the Companies Act, therefore lacks certificate of compliance, and its operation in Kenya are illegal.
Without going into what exactly happened at that particular time, because I think the team is going to explain that. I think there is an aspect of the need to protect Kenyans within the area of consumer protection law.
State Council now says image rights were not protected, stating that only the scans of the iris were captured, but also the entire facial image, which according to them the entities violated the act by sharing information of data was transferred outside the country.
If I am the data commissioner, I'm looking at the regulations and an application is before me, and I am required to inquire from this applicant the registration certificate, the wording of this regulation. Is it clear? Does it state it is the registration certificate from country of origin or the certificate of compliance issued by the Registrar of Companies here in Kenya to regulate the doing of business of a foreign entity in Kenya? I submit to you it is not clear, member. The registration certificate needed something further to qualify it in order for this applicant to furnish the document. What we do know for sure is that a registration certificate was issued to this data controller known as Tools for Humanity, trading as WorldCoin. It was issued with a data certificate, with a registration certificate to conduct its business of data controlling and processing.
A list of witnesses was submitted having complaints on eye issues, hallucinations, and other health complications are also expected to appear before the committee. The committee will resume tomorrow. Mevin Getembe, Lookuptv, Nairobi.
Let's move on this morning where President William RUTO has commissioned the Kakamega County Aggregation and Industrial Park at a Likuyani constituency. The development aims at providing links between our farmers, industries and the market both nationally and internationally.
The Western Region tour that saw numerous projects launched in Bungoma, Kakamega, Vihiga and Busia, President William RUTO has today inaugurated the construction of Kakamega County Aggregation and Industrial Park at Likuyani constituency, a move that will see Kenyans enhance productivity as the nation is prioritizing the consolidation, processing and value addition of agricultural products.
Leo mimi nimefika hapa kwa shughuli ya maendeleo ya sehemu hii. Nimekuwa hapa tangu Ijumaa iliyopita na nimesema hii Kakamega pia tuijumuishe na kuiunganisha na Kenya ile ingine yote, tutembee pamoja. Tumeenda pale Busia, tumeanzisha county aggregation kama hii. Tumekuja Bungoma, tumefanya juzi. Jana nilikuwa kule Vihiga. Leo nikasema nifike hapa Likuyani ili tuanzishe hii mradi.
RUTO has also lauded Kakamega farmers for utilizing the readily available fertilizers in a bid to ensure that there is food security in the country, and also hinted plans on bringing the fertilizer closer to farmers.
Vile nimewasikiza kwa makini, tuliongea hapa, mnajua sisi ni wakulima sisi wote. Watu wa hapa Likuyani na watu wa Sugoi ni watu majirani. Si namna hiyo? Na sisi wote ni mahali ambapo tunazalisha chakula kingi katika Kenya. Mimi nawapongeza wakulima wa hapa Kakamega kwa sababu mumetumia mbolea nyingi sana kuzalisha chakula yenu hapa ambayo itatusaidia kufikisha Kenya. Na hata hiyo mbolea tumekubaliana na gavana baraza ya kwamba hiyo mbolea ikuje mashinani. Ile ya Sinoko, ndio? Ya Sinoko ipatikane Sinoko. Sio lazima mtu aende sijui Moi's Bridge ama aende wapi, ikuje Sinoko.
In an effort to ensure that there is no food scarcity in the country, RUTO said part of the government farm will be used to grow seeds to be used in the agricultural sector.
Na hapa Kenya Seed tunapanga tuongeze mambo ya mbegu. Kwa sababu mbegu tulitumia ni nyingi, sasa tunataka kuongeza na tutatumia hata shamba ya serikali kuzalisha mbegu zaidi. Ndio tupate mbegu ambayo itatusaidia.
RUTO was accompanied by Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi and Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula. Amin Abdrahman, Lookuptv.
Attorney General Muturi was forced to respond to critical questions as he appeared before a parliamentary committee on Wednesday after being summoned by the Public Investment Committee, which found that 600 million shillings meant for projects at Kenyatta University couldn't be accounted for. The committee led by Jack Wamboka questioned Muturi on the legality of the Gazette notification that transformed the Kenyatta University Teaching Referral Hospital into a parastatal.
Attorney General Justin Muturi has blamed the Ministry of Health for failure to resolve the ownership dispute of Kenyatta University Training and Research Hospital today. Muturi was questioned why the management was not restored back to the university, even after the court ruled for the same. While appearing before the National Assembly Committee on Public Investments in Governance and Education chaired by Bumula lawmaker Jack Wamboka.
And therefore, this response seems to suggest that because this has been styled Kenyatta University Teaching, Research and Referral Hospital, therefore automatically, under the provisions of the Health Act 2017, it becomes a national government entity. So, we need to know, can the Ministry of Health of its own vest something that, some property that belongs to another organization, to another, create a body and say now this one which used to be yours, it now belongs to the Honorable CA. It doesn't mean, this response doesn't address that point. And for me it's an important, it's a very important issue. Because if Kenyatta University developed Kenyatta University Teaching, Research and Referral Hospital, then you cannot say that you have taken it away from Kenyatta University and created a parastatal and tell them you now own it. You would have to go again, as we have resolved in the other matter, a possibility that could be explored. You have to go through, as per the Constitution, through a process of compulsory acquisition.
The AG was angered by his office for collaboration with the public leaders in scandals relating to the ownership of Kenyatta University Referral Hospital and ownership of Kiambu's quarters land.
It will not be there because they are not state officers. They are public officers. You know that dichotomy that exists. So it is for me to deal with them. Parliament can make recommendations, but I can assure you they will be in very safe hands, those recommendations.
Muturi has faulted the Health Ministry for failure to successfully resolve the process of resolving the ownership and management dispute of the hospital, even after the court made a ruling.
If the court has ruled that where this Kenyatta University Teaching and Referral Hospital, Research and Referral Hospital is in Kenya, in KU land.
Yes.
One should then go. The next question one should ask is, which I think Governor Zambia did raise, and you also raised this, Mr. Chairman, that this hospital was developed through a loan from the Exim Bank of China.
Yes.
And that, I think, is a matter of public authority.
Yes.
Yeah. And Honorable Zambia did raise the question, is the loan being repaid or has it been repaid? And if so, by who?
The AG now wants the committee through the National Assembly to prepare a temporary report and present it to the House as soon as the Parliament returns from the short recess, calling on the leaders to follow the recommended procedure in the process of compulsory acquisition from a private to a state corporation.
An interim report which should be tabled as soon as the House resumes.
Yes.
And be the first business, among the first business to be discussed. I think it will be a quicker one because this committee is life.
Yeah.
Muturi has strongly slammed those who intend to subdivide the land of Kenyatta Hospital's court as pieces of land and demands that the activities of relocating the courts be done immediately. While the parliamentary committee now wants him to preside over the demolition process and make it a success.
Why are you creating another set of squatters? I mean, surely.
How do you propose, AG?
Implementation.
How do you implement it?
Executing a court judgment is not very difficult.
Stanley Ugaria, Lookuptv.
Now, barely a week after elections in Gabon were held, military officials have announced through a national television that will take over the leadership of the country. The soldiers have announced the results of the election held Saturday, August 26th, where the overthrown President Ali Bongo was declared a winner by the country's election commission even before vote counting was completed. Rugai Val with more.
The Gabon army has announced through a national television that they have overtaken the country's authority. They claim to have discovered results of the election held on Saturday last week, where the President Ali Bongo was declared the winner, one fairly done. It is said that the Election Commission declared Bongo becoming the winner even before finishing counting the votes, an election that the opposition claimed was fraudulent.
30 août 2023, nous,
irresponsible and predictable governance which results in a continuous deterioration of social cohesion that risks leading the country to chaos today, the 30th of August 2023, in the name of the Gabonese people, we, the Committee of Transition and the Restoration of Institutions, have decided to defend the peace, putting an end to the regime in place. In this relation, the general elections of August 26, 2023, as well as the results, are cancelled. The borders of the country are closed. Until further notice, all the institutions of the Republic are dissolved. The government, the Senate, the National Assembly, the Constitutional Court. We call on the population for calm and serenity, and we affirm our attachments to the respect of Gabon's commitments to the international community.
Ali Bongo, who is 64 years old,
has served for 3 terms since the year 2009, and his family has been in power since the year 1967. This overthrow may end his family power regime that has been in existence for the last 53 years. Ali Bongo continues to be under siege. However, through a video that has been going viral through social media platforms, Ali Bongo is asking for help from international stakeholders.
I'm Ali Bongo Ondimba, President of Gabon, and I'm to send a message to all the friends that we have all over the world to tell them to make noise, For the people here have arrested me and my family. My son is somewhere, my wife is in another place, and I'm at the residence. Right now, I'm at the residence and nothing is happening. I don't know what's going on. So I'm calling you to make noise, really. I'm thanking you. Thank you.
Nevertheless, Gabonese seem to celebrate his overthrow. It is said that they are tired of his reign and the previous governments. The commander-in-chief of Gabonese Republican Guard, Brice Oligui Nguema, says that the rights of Bongo will not be violated, but Gabon citizens must get legitimate leadership. There have been 486 attempts or successful military coups in the world since the year 1950. Africa leads by a great number of 214, of which at least 106 were successful. According to data collected by American researchers, at least 45 out of 54 countries in the entire continent of Africa have experienced at least one attempt of a coup d'etat, including Burkina Faso, Guinea, Chad, Mali, and Tunisia. Most of these countries were French colonies. Roga Evil, Lookuptv.
Let's move on now. The National Dialogue Committee has signed a framework agreement that sets in motion proper discussions between the government and the opposition on contentious issues. Among the issues the committee will seek ground on is the sensitive matter of the cost of living that has sharply divided the two sides. On the table as well is the reconstitution of the IEBC and the creation of the office of the official opposition leader. On retender with more.
The National Dialogue team has continued with its mandate undeterred, even after some voices from the Kenya Kwanza side dismissed the talks as inconsequential. On Wednesday, the committee signed a framework agreement that will guide the entire process while also settling on the key issues for discussion.
We're going to sign the framework agreement soon after this, and we're also going to sign agreement on the issues that will be presented. And we are going to tell Kenyans what to do next. We continue to reiterate that this is serious national work. If ever there was a moment that this country should come together, it is now. And we are determined as a team to make sure that happens.
The committee has settled on 5 topical agenda that will shape the final outlook of the discussions. The first agenda will see the committee tackle outstanding constitutional matters. Under this agenda, the team will deliberate on Article 43 of the Constitution, where the cost of living and related issues will be discussed. Also on the table under this agenda will be a discussion on how to implement the 2/3 gender rule and governance issues, including promoting national unity in public appointments and instilling adequate checks and balances. On Agenda 2, which touches on electoral justice and related matters, the committee will seek a common ground on restructuring and reconstitution of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission (IEBC), boundaries delimitation, and the audit of the 2022 presidential election. The National Dialogue team will furthermore discuss the entrenching of funds into the Constitution. These discussions will seek to entrench the National Government Constituencies Development Fund (NGCDF), the National Government Affirmative Action Fund, and the Senate Oversight Fund (Family) into the Constitution. On the agenda item 4, the committee will discuss parameters of establishing and entrenching state offices. Under this item, the committee has a responsibility of establishing the office of the leader of the official opposition and that of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. Finally, the committee will have to come up with structures that will guarantee fidelity to political parties or coalitions and the law on multi-party democracy. Under this agenda, the team must establish mechanism to prevent interference with political parties and coalitions by politicians. The bipartisan team is upbeat they will find consensus on these issues.
We have made tremendous progress. Wahenga ndio alisema ukiona vielea ujue vimeundo. And we continue to tell Kenyans to ignore the naysayers. There will always be those who feel threatened for whatever reason by something so illustrious, because this is wonderful work.
On which of the issues will be given priority when the discussions start, the committee says that work has been left in the hand of the Secretariat.
We have adjourned to Friday this week at 10 a.m. to allow the Secretariat and the technical teams to work on prioritization of the issues and guide us on how we prioritize what issues do we begin with, so we'll be able to communicate that decision once we meet again on Friday.
A lot more work remains to be done. And therefore, when we call on the stakeholders, I'm sure every Kenyan will know their stakeholders.
With the framework agreement now in place and the National Dialogue team enjoying the full blessings of the National Assembly, the next 60 days will be crucial as the team embarks on discussion proper to iron out differences on contentious issues and come with a common ground, a ground that will shape the politics of the nation going forward. Henry Tende, Lookuptv, Nairobi.
You can say that it has been a journey. In this way, it looks almost impossible for some of the issues to make their way into the negotiation table on that committee. If you listen to both sides during the start of these negotiations, you would have said there was no light at the end of the tunnel for those negotiations. Case in point, when the Azimio side said that they wanted to talk about the cost of living, the Kenya Kwanza side shut them up. They told them, we already have a plan for the cost of living, we're not going to talk about it. So, if indeed that particular issue has made it to the table, there is something for Kenyans then to look forward to in the outcome of those negotiations. If the cost of living has made it all the way to the table. What we're looking at this morning, and essentially what has changed again on this particular issue, and also talk about the developing cases across the country this morning. Join us online at Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. I am Kiage Simba. We take a tiny breather. Once we come back, the big conversation this morning.
Infinity Industrial Park is one of the largest private industrial parks located along Eastern Bypass, Nairobi, which provides modern infrastructure for smooth operations for industries and business enterprises. Infinity Industrial Park offers world-class amenities and facilities with wide roads, a police station, a power substation, fire station, public transport stage, hospital, and shopping mall. In addition, Infinity Industrial Park also offers CCTV cameras, 24-hour private armed security patrol, sewer, water, fiber optic cable, and 3-phase power connection, added to public utility, canteen, and dining areas. Sail on the golden opportunity to invest in Infinity Industrial Park fully serviced warehouses at a special price of 3,569 Kenyan shillings per square foot. For more inquiries, visit our website infinityindustrialpark.com.
Assalamu alaikum. Siku ya leo tuko katika kaunti ya Kwale. Takriban watu 800 leo watapokea usaidizi wetu kwa hisani ya RUTO Foundation. Kwa hivyo ambatana na mimi siku ya leo tuone hali vipi.
Iko mbaya sana baba. Iko mbaya hali. Iko mbaya. Njaa tu.
Tunashukuru kwa grupu ya Tuliani Kayamba.
Nashukuru kupata msaada kidogo, unaweza kunisaidia kidogo.
Waizidi na imani hiyo hiyo.
Asante sana kwa RUTO, manake imebadilisha maisha, imetugusia maisha yetu, na leo tunalala watu tofauti.
Na wanekasheni, nashukuru na Mungu akubarikieni.
As long as we go with that theme that ukicheza kila mtu ni mshindi, we will also continue to support.
Kwanza nawafurahikia sana, nataka tena wakija wanikumbuke mimi mzee wao.
Thank you for your help. Together, we are changing lives.
Praise the Lord and Bwana Yesu asifiwe sana. My name is Pastor Joseph. I'm from a ministry called Reconcilers World. God gives strength to the weary. I am, Jesus is speaking. He says, I am the door. Then he says, anyone who enters in through me will be saved. The Lord is my shepherd or shepherd. Then he says, I will always have everything I need. God desires to guide you. He's telling you that this day, don't just trust the Lord, but he's telling you, trust the Lord widely.
So this is how we create an art piece.
Some say it's organized chaos, while others say it is a way of survival. For Alex Kamanjiri, art is an avenue to say what he would have otherwise lacked words to express. Like many artists, it took an outsider to make him realize his knack for the arts.
First of all, it did not start like a dream. It was a lie. Yeah. While I was in high school in Form 2, I drew a portrait of an old man smoking, and my friends lied to me that it was really nice, and I believed in the lie, and I started practicing slowly. YouTube, most of my skills I've learned from YouTube, and soon enough I became good. I became that lie, became that good.
In line with the legendary 10,000 hours rule, Alex says he has put in the work and is certainly on his way to achieve true expertise. He reminisces proudly the first time he earned from this trade.
Okay, yeah, it was a portrait of an old madam. Yeah, she wanted me to draw her. Then I remember it was a small A3 size piece. Yeah. It was really nice. It was a really high pressure, because once you're used to drawing just for yourself and you're being given a commission for the first time, there's a lot of pressure in your head. Not because you're good, because you think you want to put your best into it. So
at the sound of art, many people think of a drawing, but rarely do we think of bids on an art piece.
I used to do portraits, a lot of portraits using pencil. And in the gallery that I exhibit, I saw a piece by a lady called Christine Okuma. I've never met her. I would love to meet her one day. It was a mixed media art. It was a kitenge and some beads. Yeah, if I'm right, yeah. So some triangular abstract work. And an idea popped up. So why don't I mix these beads and the portraits that I make? Let me try out. And then I tried out, and the response from my friends and the people who love my work are like, yeah, should try this more.
Wood, glue, beads, pencils, just to name a few of the tools required. The process can be demanding.
It depends with the size and also the size of the beads that you're using, yeah, and also the intricacies, because there's some more detailed artworks than others. Like you can see.
When swamped with work, Alex retreats because time is an essential part of the craft.
And we start by sketching the piece. And this piece is already sketched and it's already painted. So the reason as to why we paint before is because the beads has holes, and the holes, if the background is different from the image, it will create a different effect. So you have to paint the background first. And let's do a part that we've already painted. Where do we? Okay, let's start by this part here. So you start by placing the wood glue. We use wood glue because it's on plywood. Make sure it does not spread. Slowly, take your time. And then after that, normally I use a biro, but you put the beads first. You don't just spread, but you can also use something that has a sharp tip, like this, by placing it and arranging it slowly. First you start with the edges, move them slowly.
After all the time, energy and creativity, it's no wonder why art pieces are deemed expensive.
I'm doing my own project. Most of the time it might be more expensive because it's my own project. But there's some images that I just create that I sell at a reasonable price, depending on the size and the intricacies, the details and stuff. For example, the A3s, most of the time they range between 5 to 12K. The A3s, this is an A3. And as we go up, the money goes up.
With art galleries steadily becoming popular around Nairobi, this 21-year-old artist is keen on penetrating the market.
Currently, I'm exhibiting at a gallery in Karen, Waterfront Mall. It's called the UM Gallery. And on Saturdays, I take my works to a market. It's called Organic Farmers Market. Yeah, it's also in Karen, around Karen area, Marula Lane. That's where currently I'm getting most of my sales, the gallery and the market. But also I get from people from IG, from the net. They reach out if they want portraits or if they like what I've posted and they want to buy, they also contact me there.
For 2 years now in the beaded art world, his inspiration comes from everyday life experiences, emotions, and the power of observation.
Sometimes it comes in words, sometimes it comes in images. So I have to write things down. I have a diary where I write my ideas from.
As an artist, Alex hopes the pieces he makes will capture a moment in time. But many times, the complexities that exist within the art world are a handful.
I can say it's a risk to some extent, because you never know. You never know if you're going to earn from it or not. So by taking that risk, because Kenya art is not as appreciated as other countries.
Youth Affairs, Arts and Sports Cabinet Secretary Babu Namwamba has been on a mission to revive the art scene in the country, which has for years not yielded much for the creatives. For Alex, the culture should be inculcated in our everyday life.
Just let the artist be. Because me, I can say I was blessed to have a father who accepted me as an artist. Like, he was like, this is a statement he actually said, as long as you're not killing or stealing, you do your thing. That's what he said.
With the hope of one day being his own boss, consistency is his gospel.
They say that art is the journey of a free soul. And for Alex Kamanjiri, he is only just beginning to explore the colors and turn the chaos into beautiful pieces. Nancy Nalima, Lookuptv, Kuwinda Karen, Nairobi.
Hi, and welcome to Tujenge Home. Your number one show when it comes to all things architecture, real estate, property development, interior design. you get it right here on Tujage Home. When the food is ready.
You want to serve them?
Dinner is served. Yeah. Let's go. Let's go.
As the night falls, we come to life to bring you a comprehensive broadcast from the numerous events happening across our 47 counties.
When it breaks, it matters, and each story is important.
If it's Thursday, join me, Nancy Lima, and my able panelists as we break down the law jargons and analyze the Constitution in a way only you can understand.
The news cycle never stops, neither does time. We cover each and every sector and present you factual and accurate occurrences. This is where facts win the day. Join me,
Nancy Lima,
Ian Keitani, Tuesday, every Wednesday,
Thursday,
as from 9 p.m. on The Insight, only on Lookuptv.
All right. Welcome back to the Morning Drift. My name is Simba Kiage. Online, we are at Lookuptv. This is the Morning Drift. For the next 1 hour or so, then, let's table the big conversation at this particular time. You can join us online. Again, the hashtag is the Morning Drift. Now, if you're waking up this morning, then you're going to say that we met developments at the Bomas of Kenya. It is now turning out that those two sides have agreed on a framework that is going to guide those particular conversations for the next couple of days. Now, what we do know is that all their conversations are going to be anchored in law after both houses, that's both the National House and the Senate House, essentially passed a motion that indeed what they're going to come up with on those particular conversations is going to be fully anchored within the confines of law. Good. Now, it looked as if at the first instance, when we're getting into these conversations, some issues were not going to be discussed. Turns out that both issues from the Kenya Kwanza side and the Azimio side, in as regards this particular conflict or stalemate, you may call it, are going to be fully discussed. This morning then, let's get into that particular conversation. Already in the studio, we do have John Wangoya. How are you doing, sir? Happy to have you around. We're waiting on Silas then to get into the studio. We're going to be joined by Cyrus Akiro shortly. Good. Now, let's look at it like this. At a time when the government kept on saying there's some issues that we will not talk about, we have a plan in the way that we're going to run this country. So some issues do not hold water for us. And we're waking up this morning knowing very well that there's some taxes that are going to come in effect as of 1st of September. In fact, after the 1st of September, we will say that the Finance Act 2023 will be fully now implemented. But then, in 60 days or so, there are going to be suggestions that are going to be anchored within law that are going to touch on this particular Finance Act. John, what are you reading? Because the president was quite clear, I am not going to talk about the cost of living. That I've given you a plan. We already have a plan in place. But then all of a sudden now, both sides are going to talk about all their issues.
Yes. Good morning, Simba. Good morning to our viewers this morning. It's quite interesting that I think it's a good thing that finally we have an agenda. They've agreed, that is both sides, both the Azimio side and the Kenya Kwanza side. There seems to be progress, but I'd be very, very cautious to believe that there is nothing substantive that is going to come out of those talks. And the reason I say that is because if you want to get the pulse of what Kenya Kwanza is doing, the man to listen to is the Deputy President. As much as many people would want to dismiss him as somebody who engages in abrasive sort of empty talk, the Deputy President made it very, very clear that nothing substantive is going to come out of those talks. And I believe that is a position of government. All this is supposed to sort of manage expectations and manage the way people are sort of discussing these particular issues.
Yes.
On page, I was just looking at those issues on page, I think on page, it's in today's newspaper.
Yes, it is.
I think on page 7.
Yes.
No, actually it's on page, where they seem to have agreed. And there were those issues that Azimio had said, we're bringing forth these particular 5 issues, and Kenya Kwanza had these particular 5 issues. And I remember the last time we were here, we touched on it, and I said that I was disappointed that the issues that Azimio was bringing to the table did not have any sort of substance that would carry them forward. And this is what I meant, in the sense that you look at an issue like cost of living. The truth of the matter is, as we speak, as we sit here, we're starting to see prices of commodities fall. That is the truth. Yes? So the moment the president and the deputy, so the moment the deputy president, nothing is going to come out of those conversations. And the president himself said, we're not going to discuss the issue of cost of living. Yeah? Because of the way you approach the issue of cost of living is by putting substantive sort of proper programs or projects to bring down the cost of commodities. Yes, which the government has been doing. So he insisted that it is not going to be part of the agenda. Now that it is part of the agenda, my worry is that it will be difficult to prosecute a matter that is actually changing, that is fluid as we speak. Yes? In the sense that by the time you get into the back and forth and what the Secretariat and everybody else is doing, that we will be a month or 2 down the line, and cost of living will no longer be sort of a substantive subject for many people.
Yes.
Yes? So that is one part. Number 2, you look at the way those issues have been structured into the 5 parts, and I think for me, issue number 3 and issue number 4 is what we should, it's actually on page 4 of the Daily Nation. So the first one is on constitutional matters, something to do with the 2/3 gender rule, governance issues, and so on and so forth. Number 2 is electoral justice and the IEBC. Number 3 is incorporation of the 3 funds, the National Government Constituency Development Fund. There is the Affirmative Action Fund for women, and then lastly the Senate Oversight Fund. And then number 4, issue number 4, is the establishment or the entrenchment of the 2 offices, the office of the official opposition and the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. And then the last one is, of course, loyalty and not messing up with the other coalition.
Parties, yes.
So straight away, you look at number 5, we have a problem. We're already running into the problem of the Bill of Rights, chapter 4 of the Constitution, which guarantees us certain minimum freedoms and rights. One of them is freedom of association and right of thought, freedom of thought, freedom of association, and so on and so forth. So how do you deal with that particular matter? How do I say to you, Simba, that don't move to party X? Already you're running into problems, isn't it? Because the Constitution guarantees you the freedom to associate with any political party. And that is the truth. And the moment you start messing with chapter 4, which is the Bill of Rights, we have a problem.
Yes.
So number 5 was
that not directed directly to the president?
Exactly. That's why I'm saying if you look at these particular issues, the real substantive issues are only issue number 3 and number 4. Number 5, we have a problem with the Bill of Rights. The moment you start touching on people's freedoms, we have a problem. So take out number 5. Because there is no way you can dictate to anybody that I want you to stay in coalition X, I want you to stay in party X.
Yes.
Yes, that is a breach of the law.
And
a breach of their freedom of thought, freedom of association, and so on. And so on.
They were looking at it from the perspective of this encroachment that we've seen from the Kenya Kwanza side to the Jubilee Party. We do know very well that the Jubilee Party is a party within the Azimio, One Kenya coalition. And so they looked at it and said, well, their members we feel are getting coerced to get out of this particular party unconstitutionally, so they were saying that it's got to stop.
But you see, Jubilee is an inorganic body.
Yeah.
Yes, but you have human beings, people, men and women, who are members of Jubilee party.
Yes.
So the moment you can only dictate to the party itself, the party organ itself, but you cannot dictate to, say, Kanini Kaega, for example, yes, not to move from out of that party or to take the party in whatever direction they want.
Constitutionally, because we also do have the Political Parties Act, isn't it?
Yes.
That essentially then confines even the ruling party to essentially follow the Political Parties Act when you want to either transfer your allegiance, isn't it?
Yes.
There have been points where the Jubilee Party is looking at and saying, well, why haven't you followed the Political Parties Act in this area?
That is why in the Political Parties Act, they put precedence over the internal structures and the internal rules of that particular political party.
Yes.
So you're given an opportunity to move, because even they themselves understand that from the concept of freedom of association, somebody can move. That is why if you look at the coalition agreement that was signed between Jubilee and the Azimio coalition, that they had, I think it was 60 days or 90
60 days, isn't it? Yeah.
So within 90 days you can exercise that freedom, because they understand that particular issue I'm talking about of Chapter 4 and the Bill of Rights, the freedom of association and freedom of movement, that you cannot chain members or a political party to a particular coalition, whether you like it or not. You cannot. That is interference.
That particular aspect right there. And we're looking at number 5. And this is why the Azimio side tend to think that it holds water. They're not just looking at the president, John. They're looking at all the players in that particular area. They're looking at the National House Speaker, who's Wetangula. They're looking at the political party's registrar as well. They're looking at the president. Because if you look at all the developments around Kanini Kega, around Sabina Chege, they feel like somebody should have acted either from the National House, as a chair of the National House, or the registrar of political parties. And they want one thing, that once you move, why can't we follow the Political Parties Act that says, drop it, go back to election, and then join the other party that you want to move into, because that's what the Political Parties Act says.
If you speak to people who are sort of competent in legal matters, they will tell you that the Bill of Rights, when we talk about freedom, fundamental freedoms, what we call inalienable rights, that they take precedence over everything, even the Political Parties Act. The Political Parties Act cannot supersede the Bill of Rights, one. And then number 2, remember the Political Parties Act is an act of parliament. It's an enabling law. The supreme law is the Constitution. And it is in that Constitution that Chapter 4 guarantees the freedom of association and the movement. So it exceeds the Political Parties Act. You cannot use Political Parties Act to hide behind it to restrict the movement of people. That is the problem. The Constitution will always take precedence, will always be supreme to all acts of parliament. So I was explaining that. So with particular regard to number 5, it will be problematic to that. Because the moment you start now infringing on the Constitution, we have a problem that you would know, yes? And then number 2, delimitation of boundaries. That is the work of the IEBC. It is the sole mandate of the IEBC to deal with boundaries. And the reason I'm saying that, of course, is very obvious. We know that from the IEBC Act, that is one of the responsibilities that have been given, and then according to the Constitution. But number 3, remember when the BBI was going around, one of the things they wanted to do was to create how many new constituencies?
Actually,
was it 70 or 80?
Was it only 70?
Yes. And that was one of the reasons why BBI was shot down by the Supreme Court. Actually, throughout the process from the High Court to the Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court,
yes,
one of the things that the courts were very, very clear was that sorry, agenda number 2 again is not a substantive agenda. Somewhere down the road, we'll get into problems.
Yes.
Let me just finish our point.
Okay.
And then if you go back to number 1, we've already discussed that. There is no way we can sit around a table to discuss cost of living, honestly. It doesn't make sense. The reason is that we are in a very fluid and a very highly dynamic situation where people are now starting to harvest. Maize is coming out in Western Kenya. And remember, most of the times when we're talking about cost of living, we usually use it as an euphemism for the cost of unga, basically. Yes?
Yeah.
But if you look at what is happening, I remember talking to a guy who is already he's into that business of buying maize at the moment. And he told me he's buying maize in Western Kenya for 3,500 a bag, as we speak. And that is, you have not included that the people of Uasin Gishu, which is the breadbasket of where we get the majority of our maize from, are actually starting to harvest in the next few months. Sorry, in the next few weeks. So what do you do? Prices are coming down. So how do you sit around a table to discuss something, like I said, that is fluid, that is highly dynamic? Prices are falling. So those the particular 3 issues. Issue number 1, 2, and 5, for me, it's a non-issue. And I think with time that is going to become very, very clear. And then issue number 3 and number 4 is where the crux is. That is where the substantive matters are. But again, going back to our last conversation when I was here, I asked, are we ready for a referendum? What had happened, our history with BBI and all those issues around the BBI, because those 2 particular issues will take us at some point to a referendum. So the question is, do you honestly believe as Kenyans, given what happened, actually it's almost a year and a half ago? Yes. Are we ready for a referendum? Will people be ready to talk about a referendum? And that is where now, that is why for me this particular agenda actually supports what the Deputy President said, as much as we may not want to agree with him, that nothing substantive will come out of these talks.
Let's look at it from this point of view. Yep. That your critics will say this, John, that you say that from your analysis of those issues, some of them might not actually be substantive. But when you go back and look at exactly how we've gone through around it, both the Senate and the National House have said that whatever those gentlemen and ladies are going to discuss over the other side, they're going to be anchored within law. Don't they have the mandate to agree on something? Let me start with the cost of living. That we're looking at it from the point of the cost of unga. Hasn't the Azimio coalition been quite vocal about the taxation regime of the Kenya Kwanza government? That it will be very easy for them to look for 1, 2, 3 taxes and say, reduce this. That this is the one that essentially impacts on the cost of living in this country. Case in point, the 16% VAT on petroleum products in the country. They're quite vocal on it. Don't you think that even if they're going to agree on something, and the fact that they've said, well, we're going to talk about all those issues in entirety, that the Azimio coalition, number 1, have to come back with something to their supporters?
True.
Don't they have that weight at the back of their heads, John?
Of course they do. Of course they do. That is why, if you remember, when initially they agreed on the agenda, you remember that first time, I think it was in July, mid-July.
Yes.
And out of that conversation in Mombasa and Obasanjo and so on and so forth, you remember the initial statement that was issued actually enumerated 5 issues that were largely what Kenya Kwanza had proposed. Yes, and then I think the following day, because that statement came out, I think on a Saturday or on Sunday, and the following Monday, Azimio was quick to sort of retract and say that as much as we had that agreement, those are not the only 5 issues that we agreed on.
Yes.
There are other issues, and then there was that sort of semantics around everybody has the freedom to bring whatever they want to talk about to the table.
Yes.
So now going back to the cost of living, I'm not saying that there are not certain particular issues that can be addressed, but the question is, do we really have the power to, say, for example, change the Finance Act, which we know that the Finance Act 2023-2024 is actually in force, isn't it?
Yes.
Apart from that sort of small hiccup in July when Omtata went to court and then it was suspended and then it was given the go-ahead. Yes. So we are already rolling into, we're actually now going into Q2 of that particular Finance Act.
Yes.
So it will be very, very difficult for us to go back, given that, remember, the whole entire budget is based on estimates and numbers based on that Finance Act. So you cannot change it midway. And remember, again, point number 2, very, very important. We've already started the process of creating the next budget, 24-25. That has already started. The process has already started.
Yes.
I remember seeing, I think a week or 2 ago, the Treasury CS, Professor Ndungo, actually putting out an advert in the newspaper saying that we've started the process of creating the 24-25 budget. It would be very, very difficult, even if there was to be an agreement, which I doubt, it can only be incorporated in the next Finance Act, not in this Finance Act. As we speak, Finance Act 23-24, that train has already left the station.
Yes.
Yes. There's no way they're going to go back and delete, say, VAT. If you do that, then again you mess with the entire... Remember, all these numbers add up to create that Finance Act, including measures to raise revenue and measures to spend that revenue.
So somebody would ask you, somebody would tell you the question, well, even at the time when we have these cases in court, I mean, the implementation of this Finance Act 2023 was already stalled even before they implemented it. So would it be unthinkable for the Azimio coalition to say, for us, what we feel is that 16% VAT or this particular tax or this particular area in that taxation regime essentially needs to be wiped off? They have been vocal about it.
They've been, and rightfully so.
Yes.
Yes, because we know that we have a problem with the cost of living. And by the way, that problem of cost of living is not just about us.
Yes.
It's affecting everybody. You look at the news, of course, you being news people, and many, many Kenyans who are interested in the news across the world will know that the cost of living is not a peculiarly Kenyan thing. It's actually everybody who is affected by it.
Yes.
The point I'm trying to make is this. I'm trying to say that as much as there is a genuine grievance and there is a genuine concern about the cost of living, some of the measures that can be proposed, including, say, for example, bringing the VAT 16% down to, say, 8% like it was previously, cannot happen within this financial year because that train has already left. The budget for 23-24 is actually being implemented as we speak. The only problem we had was that 1 month sort of hiccup when, of course, the matter was in court and government was made. And if you had cared to listen to, or if Kenyans had cared to listen to the argument that was being made by the Attorney General, of course, on behalf of government, is that the moment we do not have a Finance Act in place, we are already operating in unconstitutional waters. Because it is the Finance Act for that particular year. You cannot purport to use last year's Financial Act to support expenditures and revenue raising in this year.
Yes.
Yes, it is only valid in that particular year.
Yes.
So the point I'm trying to make is, I'm not saying that it's an invalid argument, but you can only propose it to be inserted in the following year's budget. So even if they were to bring down VAT, say, to 10%, for example, it cannot apply to 23-24. It will apply to the next budget. And of course, we know by the time we get to that particular point, things will be different.
John,
we'll be dealing in
not even an amendment to the Finance Act 2023, because they might actually use that as a way in. I'll be coming back to you on that. Let me introduce Silas Akiro, an advocate of the High Court, to the conversation. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. Good morning to you.
Happy to have you around. Here's the thing, you're going to take 2 minutes, because that's exactly what we have left before we come back from this particular break and then get talking about these particular issues. Kenyans were treated to good news yesterday, and that's exactly what we're talking about here today. Good from whatever perspective you are on, looking at it, this issue form, that all the issues that were proposed by the Kenya Kwanza side and the Azimio coalition are essentially going to make it to the negotiation table. And that's exactly what John and I are looking at. Do you believe that in one way or another, that this is, you would say, a good development from that particular house of Bomas of Kenya?
It serves the divergent views of the warring parties.
Yes.
Because, you know, when you have what you're agitating for on the table, it a little bit gives you hopes that we're now on the same, we are at par. I mean, we are equal, we are peers.
Yes.
But then when you come to what really impacts Kenyans, we did not hear that being mentioned, particularly on the issues of the cost of living. We have had issues to do with positions, the president himself vowing that he is ready to create and even fund the office of the the leader of official opposition. But then when it comes to cost of living, just like Jonas said, the train has already left. And if you look around, Kenyans have adjusted. They know mkate size is that 100 plus or 200 plus. So the sugar is already fighting cement costs. So, yeah.
I like the way you put it, because once we come back from this particular break, then Silas, we're weighing in on those issues. There's some issues that John is saying, well, not going to be going to bring a problem, and particularly he's saying that for him, those that are really heavy for discussion on that particular table are the issues that are potentially going to take Kenyan to a referendum. Again, the entrenchment of the office of the opposition, you know, the entrenchment of the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. Those are things that are not essentially in our constitution. And the question I ask is that, are Kenyans ready to go back to a referendum? Once we come back, we'll be looking on these issues. Also join us online at Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. Do you believe that some of these issues are essentially done and dusted with, especially on this particular and on the cost of living, just like John is saying this morning? Talk to us. I am Simba Kiage. Once we come back, this gentleman weigh in on much and more of these conversations this morning.
Realize your home ownership dream by investing in Brookvale Tuala, a magnificent prime residential property located in Ongata, Rongai. Brookvale Tuala by Safaricom Investment Cooperative overlooks the majestic Ngong Hills and lies only 24 kilometers from Nairobi CBD. The project boasts of well-serviced plots with a perimeter wall, graded roads and a borehole. 50 by 100 plots are going for 1.4 million shillings with a flexible payment plan of up to 6 months. To book your plot, call 0729 121212 today. Safaricom Investment Cooperative, the investment partner of choice.
Infinity Industrial Park is one of the largest private industrial parks located along Eastern Bypass, Nairobi, which provides modern infrastructure for smooth operations for industries and business enterprises. Infinity Industrial Park offers world-class amenities and facilities with wide roads, a police station, a power substation, fire station, public transport stage, hospital, and shopping mall. In addition, Infinity Industrial Park also offers CCTV cameras, 24-hour private armed security patrol, sewer, water, fiber optic cable, and 3-phase power connection. Added to public utility, canteen, and dining areas. Sail on the golden opportunity to invest in Infinity Industrial Park, fully serviced warehouses at a special price of 3,569 Kenyan shillings per square foot. For more inquiries, visit our website infinityindustrialpark.com.
Beautiful, wonderful, glorious. We are having the show that we share entitled Shepherd Voice.
I'm waiting for you to get me to Kenya. That's what I'm waiting
for you.
God is the source of every blessings that flow into your life.
And I know that God is going to bless you and to do a new thing.
Pray, 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 pray.
Kipindi ni ukulima ni mali na Manjoro. Kumbuka hapa ndipo unajifunza mambo mengi kuhusu ukulima. Kilimo ni uti wa mgongo wa nchi, na ukiwa na Njoro unajifunza. Kumbuka, angalia mwenyewe. Tunakuambia ukitaka kujua tips za ukulima, ungana na sisi kwenye Lookuptv. Every Sunday unatukuta pale saa 10, tunakuonesha kuhusu ukulima. Ukulima wa mimea, ukulima wa ng'ombe, ukulima wa kuku, ukulima wa mbuzi na yote ambayo yanahusiana na ukulima. Kumbuka nini? Kipindi ni ukulima ni mali.
Karibu mtazamaji kwenye kipindi cha jamii na itikadi.
Kaini kitako tuna mengi.
Mapenzi yanapoanza watu huitana bebi na majina mengine matamu matamu, lakini baadaye penzi linapogeuka na kuwa shubiri,
mtu anafikia kwenda kumtafuta mke mwingine.
Itakuwaje?
Yule wa kwake nyumbani labda hajamridhisha.
Ni sawa ama vipi Malkia?
Dadangu, wanaume ni kama maembe.
Huyu ni mwanamume atakuja abadiliki.
Mwanaume mwenye wanawake wengi hata katika uchumba, kwenye ndoa ataendelea. Mtu na tabia yake hawachi. Ile umbo la kike likishaanza, kila kitu kishaanza kuwa mahali pake.
Ningependa kukuona.
Sijaenda mahali ambapo mimi nilisikia mtu ati huyu alikuwa shujaa, alikufa katika mstari wa mbele wa ndoa. Sijawahi sikia mimi.
With Silas and John this morning. If you're just joining us this morning, this is Lookuptv, and the morning drift is exactly what you're watching right now. My name is Simba Kiage. Let me just jump quickly to Silas before then I cross over to John. That that particular issue for stop encroachment of political parties in the country, that it comes from an honest point of view, according to the Azimio coalition. In fact, if you do remember, Raila Amolo Odinga, in his last round of demonstrations, he did term them as the Saba demonstrations, where it felt like there is no democracy in this country, they have no say, and the avenues of having a say, either through parliament, through Senate, are essentially gone, because the Kenya Kwanza side already has a grip of all these particular areas. That's when they said, if you're going to have a conversation, then we have to talk about how you're going to stop encroachment of political parties in the country. Good. They looked at one man, Silas, Moses Wetangula. And then they said, that guy right there could be our problem, because it looks as if you've instructed him that we, as the minority side in parliament, are not going to have a say, that in every little step that we make, there's already a block. And it's not just him. Regarding Gachagua, I was also saying that in every little step that he makes is introduced a block, that they can't make a move. That's why they now want to talk about how to stop the government from encroaching political parties in the country, and we do know who they're talking about, does it stand water? Because John tends to think, that's encroachment of people's rights. They can do whatever it is they want.
Yeah, you know exactly. We can look at it at John's perspective.
Yes.
Of encroaching on people's rights.
Yes.
Which they have the free will to exercise their rights as they deem best.
No, sir.
However, if I decide that I do not want to enjoy my right alone, I want to enjoy it with others in a particular context and setup. And then these others, I found them here, or we come together, form this particular house of ours together, put rules and regulations, which I must adhere to. So, number one, in my enjoyment of my particular right, first of all, I have a duty to this house. Then, second, a duty to myself. So, I cannot abrogate the duties of the party in my enjoyment of my personal right.
Yes.
Either I first pull out individually. And that is why the options of resign, we go back to
the ballot,
the electorates. But if you want to bulldoze because you have some backup somewhere, I will agree with Azimio. Stop encroachment on political parties' affairs. Looks, I'll give it into this context. The jurisprudence around redundancy in employment labor laws is pegged on the fact that the owners of companies have the right to restructure their companies as they deem it fit.
Yes, sir.
So they could say, today we do not have the position of marketer. You will not say anything about it. So it's the same way, if the political parties decide that you are now beating the drum for our opponents, you have lost touch with the manifesto that we came up for, which we need to fight for to ensure that even if we have lost, a few of our manifesto are included, or rather are worked on.
Yes.
But then, you've gone the other side. And you seem to be having more powerful voice and backing. Simply resign. So in your enjoyment of your personal right, as John puts it, remember there is the bigger house here, whose rules and policies, just like the studio here, they say come to work at 7 a.m. and then you feel like your personal right, you need to sleep a little bit until maybe 10 a.m. Then you come. Your duty first. If you don't like, you ship out so that you may go and sleep.
That's it. John, which therefore brings me to that particular point. That's what we're talking about. That's what Silas is articulating. That they have real examples. And they've complained to the registrar of political parties. They've complained to the chairman of National House Business. That is Weta. They're telling him, well, can't you see? In fact, there is a point, and you and I saw it. During the debate for what was the Finance Act 2023, Finance Bill 2023, that became the Finance Act 2023, the minority side did not have a whip in the National House.
Yes.
Guess who never listened to the minority side? When they said, you see now, we've given you our whip. We've chosen our whip. This is exactly whom we think is going to be our whip. As a political party, we have. Guess who never listened? So don't they have a point then?
They do have a point.
Yes.
It's true, whatever you're saying.
Yes.
That members, once you're a member of a political party and you win on that particular political party,
yes,
then you are supposed to propagate and espouse the values of that particular party.
That's it.
Yes. But remember, Michael Joseph said we are very, very peculiar. That it is only Kenyans who do things certain ways. Huh? You look at our politics. The truth of the matter is, didn't we have a president who was a sitting president who was supporting an opposition leader? Didn't we see that
Yes,
last
we did.
year?
Yeah.
So this particular issue of, it makes sense, yes? It makes sense that once you stop propagating the ideas of party X, you should leave that party. And I think it is, the historical context is, I think it was introduced by Tom Mboya. It was supposed to deal with Mzee Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, I think those days of KPU, KANU and KADU. And the idea was that it was supposed to stop people from jumping all over. And it makes sense, which is true, that from a philosophical perspective, that once you're a member and identify as a member of Party X, yes, the only way you can go now and support Party Y is by leaving Party X, which is resignation. But we know that we don't do that, yes? So now, we go back to now the practical side of it, which is, we know that people will say, I'm from Party X, but morning to evening they're seen in Party Y. We say it. It's not just Jubilee and UDM and all those other parties. We've seen it with politicians through the years, that everybody will sort of, a majority of them will cross over,
yes,
ideologically, but in practical terms, which is now enforced by the law, which means you should resign. Nobody does that. Has there been any Kenyan who has ever resigned from their political party when they are a sitting MP or a sitting senator and so on and so forth?
One time, Raila Amolo Odinga.
Raila Amolo Odinga,
yes.
when?
Was it 1997 when he essentially just stepped out and went back and asked Kibera residents to actually vote him in because he was aggrieved in the party that he was? Let me just pull that up, yeah. And that's why he's championing for it.
Okay.
He's saying that I'm a true story to that, because I have a political party here that I'm running.
Oh yes,
yes.
Yeah, actually he did that, yes. He's the only man who has to have ever done that. All these other guys, all these other guys, they jump, and we see actually this particular person is now pushing the agenda of Party Y, but they're still rooted in Party X.
And that Monday,
even when we are coming to the elections last year, we knew that Kenya Kwanza, all those guys in UDA had moved to UDA, but they stayed in Jubilee, and everybody kept saying, you guys moved to UDA, but they didn't. So that's why I'm saying, I'm not saying these issues are not valid, but I'm saying that when it comes to the practical sort of, if you were to do a practical open heart surgery of these particular issues, you'll notice that some of them is a waste of time.
Does it?
Yes, so, that's the point I'm trying to make.
Let me just put it to you again. And I like what John is saying, that some of these issues could be a complete waste of time. Now, John, let me paint for you a picture.
Okay.
We are in a negotiation, all right? And I'm sitting here with you, and I'm saying that you see now, from our side, there are people that we feel we are aggrieved, but which you, the government, has made possible for them to continue with the agenda in our political party. Case in point, Sabina Chege, the likes of Jalango, who the Azimio coalition has said they left. They left. We want them out. Silas, don't you think then that this is not going to be a waste of time, in the sense of that should they agree and say that we are not going to live here until you go back and tell the Speaker of the National House, Moses Wetangula, to make a clear ruling on this particular case, send those gentlemen and ladies out of the National House back to the ballot box, because they left our party. We've already agreed, we've signed on it, we've said they are not part of a political party. Then it's not a waste of time, isn't it?
Is Simba? From a practical sense, the only things that are going to carry the day are the issues of political interests of the big two. These are the issues that are going down into policy and rules, are going to be the ones to be sacrificed. You know the principles of mediation and negotiations. You come with your hard lines, we sit on the table and we agree to compromise. Give your goat, I give my sheep, we get this cow. So some of the things that are going to be sacrificed are those ones, the issues of political interference. Because they are going to say, no, you'll now be interfering with the order of business in the house. So we really can't agree to your terms. So you'd go to sacrifice this.
You know, just Silas, hold on. I'm listening to you, Silas. And here is a question as well. Yes. Speak about that, knowing very well that there are even injunctions by the High Court of Kenya that are threatening the position of the Prime Cabinet Secretary.
Exactly.
That is completely unconstitutional.
Yeah.
Now put that situation on the table. Is that you over the other side, you've got a man who left a political party, who left our coalition to come and join you, and you essentially just used him to get your political mileage. And here we are telling you, within our political party, again, there are people that we want out, that you guys are holding on to. So, if you're going to give me something, what do you want from me on this particular one?
You see, Simba, we are not running government,
yes,
particularly in Africa or
yes,
Kenya to be precise, on the premise of the principles of Baron de Montesquieu,
yes,
who came up with the definition of government or democracy. J.B. Ojwang, was it him? Not so. It was the chief, the justice who was brought to the bench of the Supreme Court recently, the latest, forgetting his name, the latest justice during the interviews.
Yes.
Just forgetting his name. He stated that if the three heads of different branches or arms of government are to sit down,
yes,
they are to be equal. Meaning we have the Chief Justice on his seat here, the President on his seat here, and the Speaker of the National Assembly sit there. They're supposed to be speaking on a peer. The role of Parliament is supposed to oversight both the executive and the judiciary. And the role of the judiciary is supposed to make sure that the laws that come from Parliament are constitutional.
Yes.
And the executive also has its role. But then when you look at the issue of oversight is what is bringing up this discussion we're putting here.
Yes.
Because the executive feels they want to have a through pass into Parliament and into judiciary. Maybe we'll bring it the point later, but remember the Mambo ni Matatu issue.
Yes.
He said, I don't want courts. There is, in fact, he did not say I don't want courts. He said, there is no court here. An ultimatum from the executive. There's no approval from judges. The Chief Justice hasn't spoken out against that. As the head of judiciary, Parliament hasn't spoken out against that. So you see, this buying out political muscle flexing,
yes,
is to make sure that the one who wields the presidential seat gets a through pass into laws and policies.
No, sir.
If I want this tax bill to go through, beat this side, galvanize this side, kick the ball into the goal.
Yes.
So when you talk about political interference, I'm telling you that is something we really need to agitate against. We can't just leave it that is the way the practice is. But it is not going to come out of a silver platter. It's one of the most emotive issues, because that is the only way you see the presidency maybe paying or scolding the other party. That if you come too much this way, I'm going to interfere with your house.
No. John, when you look at the setup of these negotiations, and this is a question that somebody asked me yesterday. I considered it one of the most critical questions I've ever received around this particular conversation of the bipartisan talks, round 2, that are already going on at the Bomas of Kenya. In the first round of negotiations, John, we never saw the government come up with issues. They were never there. Because they said, we are the government. We want to run this government. We have the confidence, we have a plan. Our manifesto is already going to be implemented in the country. Fine. We got no issue. Come, tell us your issues. Want to listen to them. If we can solve them, we can solve them. And we're going to solve them constitutionally. Fine. And that is the right procedure. We said, good.
Everything should be
in place. Second round of negotiations, John. So the government has issues that they want to talk about with the opposition. First question that came up with, so that who solves them? Then we got an answer. The Senate and the Parliament are going to table those motions that everything that these guys talk about is going to be anchored within law. Then we said, shortcut. If it's a shortcut, then we asked, shortcut to what? It's a shortcut to a referendum. From the way things are. From the way you are annulling all those issues and remaining with two issues. Entirety. Good. If the government wants a shortcut, then can't you see, John, that in a normal negotiation table, that the opposition side would be given more so that the government gets a shortcut to whatever it is that they want to introduce. That's what I'm saying. It looks simple right now to look at some of the issues and say, it's a waste of time. This one, I don't think they will agree on it. But the azimio side is saying, we have these people that we want out. They're already out. So for us to give you this, for us to go back to our members of parliament in the house and tell them, support that motion for a referendum, you got to give us this. Looks as if the government wants more than the azimio coalition wants.
Very, very important issues you're raising there.
Yes.
And for me, and I think I've raised this in our last conversation,
yes,
that I'm worried that what they're simply doing with azimio is that government has given them a rope to hang themselves with. Yeah. I'll explain that. I'll come back to that. So I want to go back to that issue of Jubilee.
Yes.
The reason I want to sort of make this point clear is that, remember what we've said, the party itself, the political party itself is inorganic. It doesn't have life. It is the members in that particular political party that give that political party life. Yes. So now we are in this situation where just before the last elections, we know that, of course, in the pursuit to push the elections in a particular direction, that the parliament was used to change the law to the Political Parties Act and introduce what basically was a coalition party. Yes, which is what azimio is. But remember, inside azimio, there are those independent political parties. There's Jubilee, there's ODM, there is WIPA, and so on and so forth. Yes. So now, the interesting bit we find ourselves in is that Jubilee wants to move out, like the way UDM, I think UDM, the one from Northeastern?
Yes, UDM.
To move out of that particular coalition party. So the situation that they find themselves in, which is difficult for azimio coalition, is that, remember, these matters are now, I think, in the Court of Appeal. I think they've gone to the Court of Appeal. But most likely, given what has happened in the lower courts, Sabina Chege and the other guys, that faction is going to triumph. The reason I'm saying that is, remember, the political party itself is inorganic. It is the people inside that political party giving it life.
Yes.
So it is up to those people in that political party. If they choose to move, if they choose to leave, there's nothing you can do, because that political party is them. Yes, and you can see that from, I think, all the 20-something, are they 27 or 24? Jubilee members of party in parliament.
That's it, yeah.
Only, I think, 2 are still sort of substantively in azimio. So how do you navigate that? Yes, eventually Jubilee will leave azimio coalition party. That's a truth. Regardless of how long it takes, Jubilee will eventually leave, because they've shown that intention. They followed the law. Remember, in their pre-election pact, they agreed that within 90 days after the election is only when you can leave, which they activated. So there is no way you're going to hold them down there, because Jubilee is a party by itself. Yes? So they can leave whenever they want. Yes. So you can't hold them in that particular coalition, because they have freedom of movement and so on and so, going back to where we started. Yes. So that is why.
Yes.
Let me just finish our point. That is why I'm saying it is futile for some of these matters to prosecute them as if they're going to be permanent, or as if they have some permanency. They don't. These things are fluid. Jubilee will eventually, assuming that the Court of Appeal sits in November,
yes,
and okays everything and says everything is okay, we recognize Kanini Kega as the Secretary General and Nani as the party leader. What do we do? What does it mean for these coalition talks? What does it mean for the Secretariat that is represented by Jeremiah Kioni? What does it mean? That's the reason why I'm saying these particular issues are very, very dangerous for Azimio. They have to be very, very careful. They have to think through about what they want. So now going back to the rope that I said these guys were given to hang themselves with, is these issues by Kenya Kwanza were actually contained word for word in that statement by the president in the opening of Parliament. Do you know that? When Parliament opened, the president, there's a presidential speech as to his intentions in his term, what he needs to do. He actually presented those 5 issues. A lot of people don't realize that, but go and check. In the opening statement presented by the president to Parliament when it was opening in the first sitting, he said, I want to deal with that matter of 2/3 gender rule once and for all. We want to embed those funds that are deemed to be unconstitutional, so including NGF.
NGCDF.
Yes, that one. We need to embed the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, and we need to embed the office of the official opposition. It was there, I think, back in November.
Yes.
It was there in the president's opening statement to Parliament, that this is my agenda going forward in this first term. Yes. So when this bipartisan talks opportunity happened, that is why now I say it, going back to what you've just said, the government got an opportunity to push the president's agenda, which he launched last year, to push it through. So they are basically using Azimio, or these bipartisan talks, to achieve the president's agenda.
Yes.
And that is going to be very, very bad or dangerous for Azimio, because like I said, the issues that Azimio has brought to the table, unfortunately, are very, very fluid, that very, very soon some of them will be overtaken by events. But those matters around embedding the official opposition office, the Prime Cabinet Secretary, and so on and so forth, those are substantive matters that will be with us to the end. So what does it mean in terms of that issue number 3 and 4, yes? For the opposition? We find ourselves in a situation where Azimio now will end up in the same situation they found themselves last year, pushing an unpopular bill. Because we will end up in a referendum, isn't it?
Definitely.
We'll end up in a referendum when it comes to Nini. And unfortunately, Azimio now will be used to push that referendum agenda, like they did last time. And you know what happened after that.
Salah, just before I cross over to you, John, are you closing your eyes to the fact that indeed now the Azimio coalition is quite aware of that they've looked at the issues that the government is presenting to them, and they know the history of these issues, they know what the president wants to achieve? So does it not give them more bargaining power then on this table, John?
It does. It definitely does. It definitely does.
But you don't answer me then.
And that is why I was saying.
So what's going to be the outlook then of this negotiation? They're quite aware of what he wants to achieve, isn't it?
Yes.
So what's going to be the outlook of these negotiations? That's why some of these issues may not just be a waste of time, isn't it?
Actually, it is. in a sort of counterintuitive way. That is why I started by saying, listen to what the Deputy President said, that nothing is going to come out of these talks. Because Azimio find themselves in a situation where they have a golden opportunity. Yes, but unfortunately they've not been able to frame whatever they want in a way that delivers for them and everybody who supports them.
Yes. Isn't it, Salas, I'm going to put you the same question to you. If indeed the Azimio coalition is quite aware that the government wants this as a shortcut to achieving the president's agenda, the embedment of those funds, the entrenchment of the office of the opposition leader, the support of the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, isn't it? And also now, officially, introduce the 2/3 gender rule, which I do know very well, that they want to actually achieve. The president wants to achieve that. And the only way he's going to do that is he gets majority support from the minority side as well in Parliament, and he knows that very well. if the Azimio coalition, Silas, knows very well that these are the issues that the government has, don't they have a proper bargaining power as they get into these negotiations? And I want to ask you this question, might be quite controversial. Is that not why then we are seeing the government accepting all the 5 issues from the Azimio coalition to be tabled so they can have a way in on whatever it is they want to achieve at the end of the day?
You know, Simba, in Kenya, the only elections that have always gone undisputed, let me call them not election, but
yes.
Voting at the referendum. Nobody has ever disputed referendum. And they know the government is quite aware.
Yes.
All the regimes. Almost even taking the majority. So, the president knowing too well that there's a certain agenda that he has to skuma, let me use the Swahili word, there's a certain agenda that he has to push through the bigger populace.
Yes.
He needs the former PM on the ground. But I listened to the Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, during debate on these policies governing the negotiations. And at one point he literally came out vocal and said, we are not discussing Raila Amolo Odinga here. When we talk about the leader of official opposition, we do not know what the law is going to come up with. Is it going to come up with somebody who is already elected as a member of parliament to sit in that seat? And if that be the case, then it is not Raila Amolo Odinga. Now, if we look at it from the person who comes up, second runners up, then that becomes Raila Amolo Odinga. But if we want to do it in that particular sense, that we are creating a seat for Raila Amolo Odinga, not for the official leader of opposition, what becomes of when Raila Amolo Odinga retires from politics? Or God forbid, we're praying for PM's long life. He goes to Sayun.
Or goes to heaven, like the president said.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you see Simba,
yes,
to push an agenda to the public, the darling of masses in this country, known by the government. Even the government itself knows that the darling of masses in this country is none other than the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. And you discussed something with my colleague here on what became of round 1 negotiations when the government had totally zero issues to discuss with the opposition. And then, all of a sudden, they have a list of issues to discuss in the second round of negotiations. So then we come to the question, I want this pass. Sacrifice ABCD. Happens all over. Continentally, globally. We want to push an agenda, sacrifice one part. Give him what he wants.
Yes.
And that is what Uhuru did. He said he wanted to run the government in peace. Then, you see, he had to sacrifice something that many people say that he did a mistake by bringing the opposition. They are saying opposition. But literally as at that point, and even now, the country does not have an opposition. Because that is what we want to create. There is no opposition since 2013. So, the president didn't bring in an opposition. He just brought in somebody who lost an election to work with him. And then you saw the kind of tranquility.
Yes.
We can count a number of projects that the president achieved. I've just used the Red Hill Link Road. What a smooth road down there.
Yes.
Eh? When you look at the dual carriageway, Wayaki Way, now going towards home, Dala, you see, it's quite a smooth road. And some of these projects are now being launched by the current government or opened, were launched by him. Because you see somebody in his first year, I think the year has ended. 1 year, he's already launching project. No, they started from somewhere. So we see that politics is quite funny. Politics, some people go into politics with a lot of emotions. Party politicking. We win, we win. Not we win, we galvanize. And for our diverse country as Kenya, like the last time I was here, I told you, we are more than 40 plus tribes. The person who wins an election should be a figure to bring the entire country back into unity. And we will only accept unity as a country, or Kenyans will accept unity, when they see the appointive positions given to at least the entire tribes that make the country. Job opportunities, resources, creation of employment given equally. Then we'll say, wow, the president will have nowhere calling his stronghold and nowhere calling not his stronghold. If that happens, he'll move freely from region to region. He'll be accepted. Watampigia makofi, watamwekea makanzu na leso chini, akanyage. But then when we see we are told 31% of positions in the KRA have gone to the Kalenjins, 25% Kikuyus, then the remaining are to be shared by. No, if you now come down to that region there, you see there'll be animosity, or you'll have to be seriously guarded. You go to some regions, you interact with people easily, but to some regions you have to be properly guarded as a president. Simba, you see these things. So we are saying, President Trump was actually scolded for losing an election and not speaking to his supporters to be peaceful. The same way Raila Amolo Odinga was being scolded for losing an election, but not speaking to his supporters to be peaceful. That is the same breadth that Trump wanted from Joe Biden, that Raila Amolo Odinga wants from President RUTO. Let us sit on the table. I don't want the cake. Let us just sit on the table and see how the country is run.
Pretty much. John, I'm going to ask you the toughest question probably in this conversation. Hopefully you have an answer for me and for the viewers who are watching.
I hope so.
If indeed you do accept that the facts now are laid bare, the president is telling the Azimio coalition, I want in. The Azimio coalition definitely, John, have said, fine, what do you give us? So when you look at those issues, what has the president given the Azimio coalition?
A rope to hang themselves. A rope to hang themselves. That's what the president has given them.
I didn't know he was going to go that.
He's given them a rope to hang themselves, honestly, because you look at those.
Is it not scratch my back, I scratch your back?
It is. That is why I said I'm very, very disappointed, because this was a golden opportunity for Azimio to bring substantive matters to the table.
Like what, John? Like what they have? They should.
I mean, it's a big party. it's a big. There are many members. Actually, this country is split almost down through the middle. Yes. The truth of the matter is, going back. Let's go back to those issues on page 5. Yes. The problem I have is this. Like I said, on issue number 5. Yes. On loyalty to political parties, coalitions, and so on and so forth. Honestly, that is a limited, and that is what Azimio brought to the table. Yeah? Do not interfere with the other coalition party. But like I said the previous, unfortunately, that even if they were to agree and come up with something, somebody will go to court, Umtata will go to court and say that that infringes on our Chapter 4 rights, Bill of Rights, freedom of association and freedom of movement. Then what happens? Yes? The key things that Kenya is paying attention to, what Azimio should be paying attention to, is, like I said, point number 3 and he will tell you as a lawyer, that is the work of the IEBC. BBI last time failed because Uhuru wanted to create, was it 70? 70 constituencies.
Yes.
And the the Court of Appeal, actually even the Supreme Court itself, was very, with finality said that that is the role of the IEBC. You cannot go over that side. So that is why I'm insisting that, unfortunately, for me, the way I say it, it's a wasted opportunity on the part of Azimio. But let them push those agendas that, for example, about more inclusivity, like he's saying, that we need to see when jobs are being given out, business opportunities and so on and so forth, that are spread out across the 40-something plus tribes of this country.
Guess what?
Yeah.
I do not know whether you share the same sentiment with John right here, but the only that the Azimio coalition are going to get out of these negotiations is just a rope to hang themselves. Take silence and John, back to the time that they joined us this morning on Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. We take a tiny breather right now. Once we come back, let's talk about other sectors in the country. Most agriculture once we come back right here on The Morning Drift. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Realize your home ownership dream by investing in Brookvale Tuala, a magnificent prime residential property located in Ongata Rongai. Brookvale Tuala by Safaricom Investment Cooperative.